There are two types of bilingualism: subtractive bilingualism, when the L2 comes at the cost of L1. L1 shrinks and the balance shifts in favor of the L2. Gradually, L1 can be lost substantially. And additive bilingualism, when L2 is added and L1 is maintained. Second language learning is not detrimental to the sustained use of the first language. I would like you to know about and read about Canadian language policy in this context. And for subtractive bilingualism, I have been giving you examples of tribal language speakers. So we'll discuss about this in the class. That will be better. We'll discuss both subtractive bilingualism as well as additive bilingualism in the class. What else is possible when languages come in contact? One of the possibilities is borrowing. In language contact phenomena, it is a common occurrence. Here words from a language are taken by another language system and used. Such words are called borrowed words or loan words. Loan words can be either old historical borrowings like Latin origin word obtain used in English, or relatively less old like pajamas or pajamas in English from Hindi Urdu pajama, which came from Persian to Hindi Urdu, by the way, or a new word like computer in Hindi from English. Sometimes the borrowed word retains its original form. Sometimes it is assimilated partially or wholly in the native phonology. For example, school instead of school in many Indian languages. That's an example of assimilation of this word to the native phonology. Certain loan words are literal translation of the original word. Such translated loans are called calque. For example, Vatanukulit in Hindi is calque of air conditioned in English. Marriage of convenience is calque of French term marriage de convenance. Superman is calque of German word Übermensch. So here you have to remember that basic vocabulary comprising of words for basic things like which are around us, like sun, moon, water, other natural items, body parts, food items, local produces, and kinship terms, etc. Cardinal numbers and inflectional morphology. So, what is inflectional morphology? For example, the way we mark plurals in Hindi, from singular to plural form in standard Hindi. That's an example of inflectional morphology. So, are not borrowed unless most of the speakers are bilinguals in both the languages. Names of artifacts like aeroplane, hamburger, etc. are borrowed much easily. And about borrowing, one thing that you need to remember is that a lot of people who use the borrowed words do not know that these are borrowed words or loan words. For example, even people who are not educated, for example, the house help that you have at your place, she or he might be using words like glass, biscuit, cake, plate, etc. without knowing from where these words have come. Or for example, the word dil. Do you know that the word dil comes from Persian? Another common occurrence that we can see in case of language contact, and this you can observe only in the speech of bilinguals or multilinguals, is code switching. People who are bilingual or multilingual have more than one codes in form of language at their disposal. So when they switch from one language to another according to the situation they are in, for example, they are at home, or they are in the school, or they are at the place of worship, or they are in the office, etc., or due to informal formal relation with the interlocutor or formal informal conversation, it is called code switching. When code switching takes place due to situation, it is called situational code switching. For example, using different languages at home, school, and market. When it takes place due to formal informal relations or formal informal conversation, it is called metaphorical code switching. That is switching the language when discussing personal or informal topics, or switching of language that is related to switching of topics. And situational code switching is switching of language which is related to switching of situations where you are. So, for example, if somebody, I'll speaks, for example, you are mother tongue speaker of Hindi and you speak Hindi at home, and medium of instruction at school is English. So you will speak in Hindi at home and you will be using English in school. So you will be switching from Hindi to English when you go to the school. So that is situational code switching. But if you are discussing, for example, you are discussing with me about your project and we are talking in English, then you start discussing about a visit of your parents to Goa. That is informal, right? You are talking about your siblings, your parents, and where all you went and such things. So you switch from English, which we were using to discuss about the project, to Hindi. That is metaphorical code switching. Why? Because it is switching, we are switching from one language to another because of change in the topic, from formal to informal or personal. Another important thing that we need to remember about code switching is that some of the scholars also associate it with registers. Code switching as in switching the registers. But here we are discussing code switching in context of switching of languages by bilinguals or multilinguals. Another interesting aspect of being a bilingual or multilingual is seen in the phenomenon of code mixing. When a fluent habitual bilingual talking to another fluent bilingual changes language without any change in the situation or context, with the same person in the same context, formal or informal, the switch between languages happens and is understood by both the bilinguals. For example, when you tell your mother, I am famished, khane mein kya hai? This alternation is called code mixing. It is used a lot in advertisement and popular entertainment. For example, Ye Dil Mange More or Ishq Wala Love. So why do we mix codes? Why do we do code mixing? Because we want to utilize the resources available to us in different languages in the given social context or interaction. For example, if it is making it more intense or drastic or emphasizing on the right sense of the utterance, it may happen because as bilinguals or multilinguals, we associate languages and words with different senses, meanings, categories, and usages. For example, if you take the example of ishq wala love, you will see that ishq and love both are used here, and literal meaning of both would be the same. But why are they used here? We'll discuss in the class. Now about other outcomes of language contact. What else can happen when languages come in contact? One of the outcome of language contact can be formation of a pidgin. What is a pidgin? Pidgins come into existence because of contact between two or more mutually unintelligible languages. That is, languages speakers of which cannot comprehend what each is saying. They cannot understand each other. That come in contact due to trade, war, colonialism, invasion, etc., there is an immediate need to communicate. The contact is not very intense. That is, it is only in certain domains like workplace, market, etc. To serve the practical and immediate need of communication between people who speak different languages as mother tongue, a pidgin is created by the process of pidginization. Pidgin is nobody's mother tongue. It emerges in a short span of time. It is very basic and grammatically simple. Lexical items are mostly from the dominant group's language. It is learned from one person to another. So, pidgins are used as language of trade or intergroup communication, while the mother tongue is maintained as the language of intragroup communication. Pidgins are not intelligible to the native speakers of the languages that are involved in evolution of the pidgin. Some examples of pidgins may be Nigerian pidgin, Cameroon pidgin, and Butler English. Now, Nigerian pidgin and Cameroon pidgin, they have native speakers who speak them as first language, so they have become creoles now. But Butler English, that developed here in India, specifically in the Madras Presidency, that is associated with development of Butler English, it doesn't have native speakers. So some examples of Butler English can be I telling master instead of saying I will tell master, or I say not coming instead of I said I am not coming. Another outcome of language contact is formation of creole. When a pidgin gains native speakers, it becomes a creole. The process is known as creolization. For example, Tok Pisin in Papua New Guinea, Nagamese in northeast India. In the process of creolization, the pidgin undergoes expansion both grammatical and in domain of usages. So, because now people are using it as native language, or first language, as it becomes the language of the home. So it will also have a lot of more domains where it will be used. Creoles can also develop on their own. They do not necessarily have to have a pidgin origin. For example, Haitian Creole in Haiti that evolved out of contact between European settlers and African slaves in the plantation. It doesn't have a pidgin origin. Another outcome of language contact can be formation of a koine. Koine, when two or more mutually intelligible languages or varieties come in contact. A new variety might evolve because of this contact. So here the varieties or languages that are coming in contact are mutually intelligible to at least to some extent, to a great extent. They have to be mutually intelligible. For example, if somebody is saying something in one language, then the other person who speaks another language should be able to comprehend it to a certain extent, so that it is not unintelligible to them. So because of contact between mutually intelligible languages, at times koines evolve. A new variety evolves that is called a koine. This new variety has the most common, or we call in linguistics, unmarked features of the contributing languages or varieties, and it is intelligible to a large extent to the speakers of the contributing varieties or languages. This new variety is called koine. For example, Fiji Hindi, South African Bhojpuri. Now another thing that can be there, another language situation that you can see in case of language contact, is having a lingua franca, link language or contact language, language of contact. When diverse group of people who speak different languages as mother tongues have to converse with each other for social or commercial purposes, one language is often used for this purpose by common agreement. This language can be a mixed language with different contributing languages, or a distinct language, a creole or koine, and can vary across regions. Such a language is known as the lingua franca. Lingua francas mostly serve as trade languages or language of communication in a wide area. For example, Swahili in East Africa, Hausa in Nigeria, Hindi Urdu in the Indian subcontinent, and English in most parts of the world. Lingua franca can be mother tongue of some group.